couple making $85,000 a year can end up with more money than a couple making $220,000 in the same country over the same years, with a totally different ending. On paper, the higher earners should be crushing it with bigger paychecks, nicer cars, and a bigger house. But fast forward 20 years, and the couple who earned less has more saved up, more set aside for retirement, and way less stress at the end of every month. Most people hear this and figure something lucky must have happened along the way. Maybe a grandparent left them money. Maybe they bought the right stock at the right time. Maybe one of them started a little business that took off. But usually, nothing like that happened at all. The answer is way simpler than that, and it stings a little to hear. Your paycheck pays for your lifestyle, but it never actually makes you wealthy. And those are two completely separate things running inside the same marriage, that most couples go years and years without ever noticing the second one is even happening. You can earn more money every single year for 10 years straight and watch your savings barely move. You can get the raise, land the promotion, cash the bonus, and still feel like nothing is actually changing underneath all of it. And that feeling is telling you something. It's the clue you've been missing. So let me walk you through what's actually happening underneath all of this. You see, every paycheck that walks into a marriage gets sent in three directions. Some of it goes to daily life: groceries, gas, a few meals out, clothes, the everyday stuff that makes life feel normal. That money vanishes the second it gets used. Some of it also goes into things you already promised away: the mortgage, the car loan, tuition. Basically, all the bills that charge you automatically whether you're watching or not. That money is already spoken for before it even hits the account. And then some of it goes to ownership, retirement contributions, index funds, actual home equity that's growing, cash sitting in an account earning interest while you sleep. That money sticks around. It grows. It keeps working for you long after you've stopped thinking about it. Three buckets. One gets spent. One is already claimed. One gets kept. Remember those three buckets, because the whole story runs through them. Now, getting wealthy is almost entirely about which bucket your raises end up in. And when a promotion lands, the household makes a choice they usually don't even know they're making. The extra money can flow into daily life, where it just disappears. It can flow into bigger bills, a nicer house, a newer car, a higher baseline of monthly obligations that follow you around forever. Or it can flow into ownership, where it starts working for you quietly for the next 30 years. Most households let the bigger bills win by default. Now they're running a bigger engine that burns the same amount of fuel. Same stress, same tight margins at the end of the month, just with nicer furniture. The couples who build wealth interrupt that default. They grab the raise and send it into ownership before daily life and monthly bills can get their hands on it. The lifestyle stays roughly the same. The house stays the house. The raise becomes something they own instead of something they owe. Do that one little routing trick for 25 years, and the two couples end up living in different financial universes. Let me show you what that actually looks like in real life. Picture a household making around $83,000 a year, middle of the country, two regular jobs, nothing fancy. Couple A saves whatever is left at the end of the month. In practice, that's about 3 or 4% of their income, actually making it into ownership. Some years less. Every raise gets swallowed up by a newer car, a bigger apartment, a slightly upgraded version of the same life. Couple B sets 15% aside from the very first paycheck. $12,500 a year goes straight into retirement and index funds before the household ever sees it or feels it. When the income goes up, the contribution goes up too. The house and the car stay close to where they started. Now run both households for 25 years. Assume their investments earn around 7% a year, which is roughly what a basic stock portfolio has done over the long haul. Couple A shows up at age 50 with about $150,000 saved, enough to feel like they did something, not nearly enough to retire on. Couple B shows up at the exact same age with just over $1 million. Same income, same country, same 25 years. The only thing that changed was which bucket caught the raises. And here's where it gets wilder. Add one more decision. Couple B buys a house that costs about $800 a month, less than what the bank told them they could afford. They drive a car that's 3 years older. They live 15 minutes farther from the fancy neighborhood. None of that feels like suffering. Nobody looking at their life from the outside would think they were denying themselves anything. That $800 a month, sent into ownership instead, grows into another $600,000 over those same 25 years. Stack the two together, and this regular income couple walks into retirement with $1.5 million. No business exit, no unusual income, just better plumbing. Meanwhile, the couple making $220,000 a year with the nicer house and the newer cars can easily show up at 50 with less than half of that. The income was bigger, sure, but the monthly bills grew right along with it, and the margin never lived long enough to compound into anything. The gap between those two households is not about income, it's about how the money is wired. Now zoom out for a second, because the money is only half the story. We'll come back to the dollars in a minute. What actually changes over 25 years of sending income into ownership is the kind of decisions the household can afford to make. Run both households through a layoff and watch what happens. In the household without ownership, a layoff is a full-blown emergency. The mortgage is due in 3 weeks. The car payment is due in 2. The credit card balance has been creeping up all year. The spouse who got laid off can't afford to be picky. They take the first job that comes back with an offer, even if the pay is lower, even if the commute is brutal, even if the role is a step backward. The household absorbs the shock by borrowing, by downsizing, or by piling pressure onto the marriage itself. 6 months later, the job has survived, but the damage sits around for years. In the household with ownership, the same layoff is a project, not a crisis. There's a year of expenses sitting in a cash account. The retirement contributions pause without anyone panicking. The laid-off spouse takes their time and finds the right job, not the available one. They negotiate harder because they can afford to walk away. Sometimes they come back earning more than they were making before. Same event. 2 completely different experiences. The difference isn't personality, it isn't mental toughness as some character trait, it's toughness as a bank balance. And here's where the quiet compounding really shows up. A spouse who can afford to leave a bad job usually ends up in a better one. A couple who can afford to wait for the right house usually buys a better one. A parent who can afford to step back when a kid needs more attention doesn't come back to work broken. Strength makes better decisions. Better decisions make more strength. That's one loop. The opposite loop runs just as hard in the other direction. A spouse who can't afford to leave a toxic job stays in it. The stress wrecks their health. The health wrecks their income. Now it's even harder to leave. A couple who can't afford to wait takes whatever is available, which is almost always the worst choice. Weakness makes worse decisions. Worse decisions make more weakness. Ownership doesn't just buy retirement. It buys the ability to act from a place of choice instead of pressure. It buys the right to say no. It buys time to think clearly. And by the time a couple hits their late 40s, this is what really separates the two households. One makes decisions from strength. The other makes decisions from whatever the month happens to allow. Here's something worth noticing about yourself. Most couples never actually design their household. They assemble it piece by piece as life throws things at them. A job opens up, so they move to a city. A house comes on the market, so they buy it. The car breaks down, so they replace it with whatever the dealer is financing that week. Each decision gets made on its own, in the moment, reacting to whatever is happening that month, and the household ends up being the sum total of all those reactions. The couples who end up wealthy are doing something different, even when they can't explain it in words. Every big decision gets quietly measured against one question. Does this feed ownership, or does it feed bigger bills? This is why wealth inside a marriage is invisible for a long time. The household building. It doesn't look any different from the one that isn't. The wealth is sitting in retirement accounts nobody sees, in home equity still being paid down, in cash reserves that never come up at dinner. Then somewhere in the 3rd decade of the marriage, the invisible finally becomes visible. One couple gets to stop working on their own terms. The other doesn't. So you see, becoming a millionaire couple has almost nothing to do with your salary. It has almost everything to do with whether your raises turn into things you own or things you owe. If this gave you a way of seeing things you didn't have before, this is what I do on this channel. I map out the hidden systems shaping your marriage and your money. Most of what's really driving your relationship isn't visible until someone lays it out. That's every video here. Check out my other videos, and I'll see you in the next one.